Hello, BookTube. It's a gray, overcast day here in Boston once again with rain very much in the offing. It felt like rain all day yesterday, but did not rain. It rained a little last night. Today's the same thing. A slate of heavy clouds and the feel of rain in the air. So it could come, but before it came the mail. There's a little mail with a surfeit of boxes. I thought we'd go through it, see what we can find. See if we can find anything really interesting. I know the odds are in favor of us getting work in translation. That has been by far the biggest fad so far in 2020. I couldn't be happier about it. So what have we got here? Okay. I don't know what this is. This is from August. It's a novel. So we've got a long way. I've got a long time to think about it. It's called Disappear, Doppelganger, Disappear by Matthew Salisis. The requisite hideous American cover. Acclaimed and best-selling author Matthew Salisis returns with another striking and pertinent novel. Well, this has got to be a work in translation then, because he's not acclaimed and well-respected to me. A novel that Viet Thanh Nguyen calls Kafkaesque, Murakami-esque. Okay. All right, those are two different esques. But what have we got here anyway? Matt Kim is always tired. Well, he must be a zillennial then. He keeps passing out. His cat is dead. His wife and daughter have left him. He's estranged from his adoptive family. People bump into him in the street as if he isn't there. He is pretty sure he's disappearing. His girlfriend Yumi is less convinced, but then she runs into someone who looks exactly like her, and her doppelganger turns out to have dated someone who looks exactly like Matt. Except the other Matt was superior in every way. He was clever, successful, generous, and beloved, until one day he suddenly and completely vanished without warning. How can Matt Kim protect his existence when a better version of himself wasn't able to? Or is his life, his worst life, a reason for his survival? Oh, that sounds really good. Set in a troubling time in which a presidential candidate is endorsed by the KKK, not so much, and white men in red hats stalk Harvard Square. Some Harvard undergraduates use the red Klan hat, the MAGA hat of a Trump supporter, as a fashion statement, as a way to thumb their noses at their parents. As far as I know, there are no actual people who believe it unironically. But then again, there's precious little over the river in Cambridge that's believed unironically. This novel is a haunting and frighteningly funny novel about Asian American stereotypes, the desires that make us human, puns, and what happens to the self when they have become someone else to be seen. Okay, all right, let's find out about the author, shall we? This is from the Little A imprint of Amazon. What are we doing here? This is Matthew. Okay, well, he looks very young to me. Matthew Salisis is the author of The 100-Year Flood, an Amazon bestseller and best book of September, an Adoptive Family's best book of 2015, a Million's most anticipated book of 2015, and a best book of the season at BuzzFeed, Refinery 29, and Gawker, among others. You have a literary venue you might want to mention there? Has this book even been read? The previous book, what was it called? The 100-Year Flood, was praised everywhere by people who don't read. Okay, great. Any literary events? Any literary journals or critics that you want to mention? Maybe not. He's also the author of I'm Not Saying, I'm Just Saying, and a nonfiction work, Different Racisms, on Stereotypes, the Individual, and Asian American Masculinity. That sure sounds like a senior thesis to me. Adopted from Korea at age 2, Matthew was named by BuzzFeed, there they are again, in 2015 as one of the, quote, 32 essential Asian American writers. Okay, but he writes in English, doesn't he? This is not going to be literature and translation, no? The Gawker Review of Books. The Gawker Review of Books, the Rumpus, AskMen.com, the Millions. Oh no, Margot Livesey also blurbed The 100-Year Flood. Was he a student of hers, maybe? Oh my, okay. Well, she's serious. Okay, this is not translated. It's in Amazon Little A. I thought they usually did translate it. But one way or another, it sounds intriguing. So this man is wondering, his doppelganger, who is superior to him in every way, has disappeared without a trace, and he's wondering if the superior doppelganger couldn't save his own life, what chance does he have when he's a schlub that people run into on the street? But I'm going to place a bet with you for August. We shall see. A haunting and frighteningly funny novel about Asian American stereotypes, the desire that make us human, puns, and what happens to the self when you become someone else to be seen. I'm willing to bet, from the combination of those things, that this does not have an ending. I'm willing to bet that the setup of a man who has a doppelganger, maybe everybody does, and maybe all the superior doppelgangers are dying, I'd be willing to bet that setup lasts to about where I have placed the pub sheet, and then just wanders off. No dramatic forgetting, no breaking the fourth wall and saying, oh, that was all set up of a novel and now I have something else to the author just can't be bothered. I'd be willing to bet that's the case. We shall see. It's a long way off. So let's see. Oh, I've got a little baby to show you. She hasn't made an appearance on camera in quite some time, has she? Oh, there are all your fans. Yes. Look at them all, baby. They love seeing you, baby. Oh, they do. They love seeing you. Aren't you pretty? You're so pretty. Oh, there they are. You don't know why I'm holding you up, do you? You don't know why I'm holding you up. I've noticed the stereotypical characterization of house cats is always that they think all humans are crazy. And the stereotypical characterization of house dogs is that they think all humans are gods. They think all humans are worthy of worship. And I've noticed that this miniature schnauzer definitely has a cat viewpoint. She thinks that humans are crazy. But let's see here. What do we got here? Oh, okay, great. I requested this. This sounds really good. The premise, the setup sounds really good. I think this is a long way off as well, but I'll be interested in seeing whether or not it can sustain, whether or not it can come through. This comes out in May, I believe. Yes, in early May. It's by Charles Martin, and it's called The Waterkeeper. Very, very nice cover. Okay. All right, the sell sheet goes right to business by bullet pointing selling points of the book. But okay, let's move on from. I might want to know about the book. I'm not selling it. After all, I'm going to read it and review it. Okay, here we go. Murphy Shepherd is a retired priest living alone on an island and tending the grounds of a church with no parishioners. But when his best friend dies and asks that Murph scatter his ashes at the end of the world, Murph lashes the ashes to the front of his boat and heads south down the intercoastal waterway. Along the way, his path intersects with a dance instructor named Summer, who is searching for her daughter. It doesn't take Murph long to realize that Summer's search is even more dire than they knew, and that her daughter has been abducted into the world of trafficking. As they search for Angel, they discover a stowaway, and it's no coincidence the stowaway chose his boat. There's more to Murph than it first seems. Less, because he's lost a Y from his name, but more as well. But agonizing memories have long compelled him to keep the truth hidden. I'm guessing that our priest has a paramilitary background. At once a tender love story and a heartrending search for freedom, The Waterkeeper reminds us that not everyone who dies is really dead. Okay. All right. Okay. So the author lives in Jacksonville, Florida. He is blurred by Lisa Wingate for the New York Times as someone who never fails to ask and answer the questions that linger deep within us all. And his novel The Mountain Between Us was turned into a major theatrical release starring Kate Winslet and Idris Elba. I believe I may have been the only person in America who saw that movie. Okay, great. Well, the premise of it sounded interesting to me. A priest with no parishioners tending to the grounds of his church, where there no one ever comes on an island. So this will be fiction that I will read in May. I will read it with one eye squinted just a bit because the statement in the pub sheet, not everyone who dies is really dead, is categorically wrong. Everyone who dies is really dead. Well, we shall see. We shall see. All right, then we'll get to the parade of boxes, and then we'll be done. Let's see. Let's see what this first one is. Boxes often mean finished copies, and finished copies are very good. Oh, okay, very good. Very good. This is a finished copy that comes out in late March. We've seen it already on this channel, and it's not going to stay here for long at all. I have drafted a reviewer. This is Eric Klein's book, Digging Up Armageddon. This is a finished copy, which Mark at Richardson Reads has very kindly agreed to review for me. Yes, it comes from an archaeological background. Doesn't have a whole lot of time at his disposal, to put it mildly. So if I want a review of a book out of him, I have to give him plenty of advance warning, because he's got 8 million hats that he wears in the little town where he lives. So, but I think I've given him sufficient warning, and I will drop a patient reminder here and there. But the finished copy is always useful for a review, because you get all the supporting material. You get sometimes the bibliography isn't included in the advanced copy. I don't remember what was or what wasn't in the advanced copy that I gave to him. But one thing that's never in the advanced copy is an index. And when you're reviewing a work of nonfiction, an index is a godsend. So it can be, sometimes. Not always for me, because usually I'm hardly letting the author of the book get a word in edgewise. So I'm not going to worry about it. I will tell you whether or not the book is worth your while, but I won't be prowling through the index. But sometimes it's necessary, and I'm sure that it'll be a boon. What have we got here? Megiddo, known as Armageddon in the New Testament, is mentioned a dozen times in the Hebrew Bible and a multitude of other ancient texts, but it is most well known as the setting in the New Testament for the penultimate battle between the forces of good and evil. In 1925, James Henry Breasted, famed Egyptologist and director of the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago, sent a team of archaeologists to excavate the ancient site of Megiddo. In acclaimed author Eric Klein's new book, he shares a vivid portrait of the internal workings of that dig in the early years of biblical archaeology. Fascinating. Okay, so this will go straight in the mail to the little farmhouse in Vermont. Great. And then it'll be up to Mark what he wants to do with it. The problem with these things, with reviewing a book on a subject where you have a lot of adjacent knowledge, or even where you have a lot of direct knowledge, it's knowing where to stop. The problem is knowing where to stop. Almost always, your knowledge of the subject is going to be ultimately more interesting to your reader than the particulars of any one book. And you have to be aware of that. Mark probably won't be. He's kind of self-deprecating. So, but nevertheless, you have to be aware that you have to be fair to the book by letting the author of the book get a word in edgewise. I just said that I don't, and it's a struggle that I have. Somebody writes a new biography of, I don't even know, Calvin Coolidge, the Emperor Tiberius. I view my job in a situation like that as the reviewer of the book to tell you the merits of the book versus the merits of any other books on the same people. But I will do most of the recounting myself. I won't need the author's help to tell you the story. I would imagine that Mark probably doesn't need the author's help to tell you the story of Megiddo either. So what the balance that you have to, or think of, like, for instance, any of those godforsaken economic books that I sent to David Murphy by the truckload. Think of something like that. The point I'm trying to make is that sometimes, actually, it was true for one of an earlier review that Mark wrote for me. Sometimes you, the reviewer, know more about the subject in a general sense, and especially for a general audience, than your author does or cares to show. This author, Eric Klein, is very good, but he's writing about just one thing. It can be an interesting balancing act, is what I'm saying. Okay. I think we've seen this already. This is by John Cagg, and this is Sick Souls, Healthy Minds, How William James Can Save Your Life. It's a naked hardcover about the interesting James brother. How wonderful. Okay, so this must be right up. Yeah, this comes out in March. Every book in the world comes out in March. There are like 600, 700 mainstream major press publications coming out in the month of March. And of those 600 or 700, probably 500 are coming out on the 3rd. It's just, I don't know what's going on there. Book section editors are going to have Megillah of a time. Because what do you do with that? You're looking at your March shelf. Maybe you are. I hope you are. You're looking at your March shelf and you're saying, well, look at all these books that are slated for release on the 3rd. I'm trying to schedule the month. I've got only so many book reviews. Most newspapers publish maybe 10 book reviews a month, if that. Then there's something like, then at the other end there's the New York Times Book Review, which does the whole book review section, and then a new book review every day. And then there's, in the middle, there's, or actually, well, towards the prolific end would be something like the Christian Science Monitor. We run 50 or 60 book reviews a month. Between the print edition and the online and the website, we run a lot of book reviews. So you're looking at that and you're thinking, okay, well, all of these books come out on the 3rd. What does that do for my scheduling and for the rest of the month? This comes out on the 17th, so when the heat is slightly off, and I don't know how much reviewing this will get. Actually, it has two things in its favor, as a thing that might get it a book review in a high-profile place like the New York Times or the New York Review of Books or something like that. The first thing in its favor, and you're going to hate me for this, but it's true, all my fellow book reviewers, and especially my fellow book section editors, will tell you that it's true, and that is that it's short. So you can give it to a reviewer, and the reviewer can turn it around, as opposed to The Logical Alien, which is 1,300 pages long of dense meta-philosophy. And the other thing is that every reviewer in the world seems to have an opinion about William James. Or a lot of them do. Like, for instance, back in the old days when the New York Review of Books was run by one person for 40 years. There was one guy, one editor at the top. And he had a mental Rolodex that was amazing, of people that he could call and contact about whatever book happened to attract his eye in the newsroom. And he had William James people, a couple of them. For all I know, the person running the New York Review of Books currently also has that thing. Anyway, this is, let's see, what have we got here? We've seen this already. This is, in 1895, William James, the father of American philosophy, delivered a lecture entitled, "Is Life Worth Living?" The lecture was not theoretical for James, who had contemplated suicide during an existential crisis as a young man. Sick Souls, Healthy Minds is an examination of James's life and thought, exploring why the founder of pragmatism and empirical psychology, and an inspiration for Alcoholics Anonymous, can still speak so directly and profoundly to anyone struggling to make life worth living. That's great. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Well, so we have... I don't think I need this. All right, so this comes out in late March. Great, we're doing fine. We're doing just fine. And then we'll do this last one, and we'll be done. Let's see here. Oh, it's another finished copy. Okay, so I got a batch of Princeton books here. This is another finished copy. We saw this already, but it's a lovely little thing, and it's also a naked hardcover. Don't know if this is a fad that Princeton is going through. This is Jim Al-Khalili, and it's The World According to Physics, in a cute little hardcover. That this hardcover is $17. I don't think I knew that when I showed you this the last time. This hardcover is $17. Is it? Oh, how lovely. Okay, this hardcover is $17, which is the price of a lot of trade paperbacks these days. So, and this is going to be a look at the current state of a popular explanation of the current state of physics. So it might be worth putting on your list. And this is going to come out in March as well. Yes, March 10th. Okay. In The World According to Physics, Jim Al-Khalili, one of Britain's foremost science communicators, offers a deeply insightful and engaging introduction to the core pillars of modern physics. Using wonderful examples and thought-provoking analogies, the author illuminates the physics of the extreme cosmic and quantum scales, the speculative frontiers of the field, and the physics that underpin our everyday experiences and technologies. Physics is revealed as an intrepid human quest for the foundational principles that accurately explain the world around us. All for $17. Not bad. Not bad at all. That comes out in March. I have suggested this to a whole bunch of editors because I think it sounds like a lot of fun, and none of them a bit, which is one of the many, many nice parts of having your own literary journal. I have my own literary journal. Open Letters is my own literary journal. Me and a bunch of other people, including the booktubers, who you wouldn't recognize, run Open Letters Review, and I have no restraints on what I can do. So if an editor doesn't take it, I can take it, and I will. so there you go. That is our mail haul for today. So we have some finished copies from Princeton. So Digging Up Armageddon, I will send that straight off to the old farmhouse in Vermont, just in case it's needed. Mark probably doesn't need it. He probably is doing just fine with the advanced copy. But the finished copy might be something that he'd want to keep in his library. His library as opposed to his library. He has two libraries. That's a little bit confusing. He has the library that he runs for the town, and then he has his own library, which is considerably bigger than he has for himself. So I don't know. He's confusing. Then The Waterkeeper by Charles Martin, which I originally requested because of the weird setting, the premise, a priest who has an island to himself and no parishioners. But the more we read that, the more it seemed like it's going to morph into some sort of crime thriller. I'm not okay with that, but I didn't expect it. Then Disappear, Doppelganger, Disappear, which I really hope, come August, does not turn out to be Disappear, Doppelganger plotline, Disappear. I'm really hoping it doesn't turn out to be that. Then Sick Souls, Healthy Minds, a book by John Cagg about William James, about the philosopher and the letter writer, as I know him, William James. And then finally, The World According to Physics by Jim Al-Khalili in a naked hardcover. Actually, is the William James inexpensive too? The William James is $22 for a hardcover, which is $10 less than the going rate. So not bad. Not bad at all. All right, so there we go. That is our mail. There's only, what do we have? 2 of the made-up stories and 3 nonfiction. I like that percentage. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.